Top 5 Kennedy half-dollar coins worth big money. Welcome to Numismatic Vault Extra. Today, we're exploring some of the most valuable top 5 Kennedy half-dollar coins from United States of America, United States. In this video, we'll break down their current market values, highlight important era coins, and explain the specific conditions that make certain Kennedy half-dollars extremely rare, including silver content, unique color shades, and special characteristics that have turned these coins into major players in the coin collector and investor world. These rare treasures are more than just pieces of history. They are among the most valuable coins collectors are actively hunting today. So, if you're a coin enthusiast, an investor, or someone who appreciates the beauty and significance of American currency, backhand index pointing right, this video is for you. Let's get started with the first coin. Magnifying glass tilted left money bag. The story of the 1993 D. Kennedy half-dollar begins not in a treasure hoard but in the quiet shuffle of daily life, in the registers of small-town stores, the pockets of commuters, and the palm of someone paying for a soda. In 1993, this coin entered circulation quietly, a medium-sized piece of metal stamped with history and purpose. Little did most people know that, in the unfolding decades ahead, certain examples from this seemingly ordinary year would become objects of passion, curiosity, and sometimes astonishing collector interest. On the obverse of the coin is the familiar face of John F. Kennedy, youthful and resolute, his gaze set forward as if toward promise. Kennedy had become an icon, a symbol of energy, idealism, and a nation's aspirations, and his image on the half-dollar was more than a design choice. It was a tribute to a leader whose life was cut short, whose charisma shaped a generation, and whose memory lingered long after his presidency. Holding a Kennedy half-dollar is, in a way, holding a small echo of that legacy. The D mint mark tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the principal facilities in the U.S. mint system. Denver had been producing millions of coins each year for decades, feeding circulation with durable currency for everyday commerce. In 1993, the Denver Mint pressed vast quantities of half-dollars to satisfy demand. For vending machines, banks, collectors, and the small transactions that make up the rhythm of everyday life. In its day, the 1993 D half-dollar was ordinary. It was a tool of commerce, meant to pay for parking meters, cafeteria trays, bus fares, and spare change jars. Most people spent these coins without a second thought, not knowing that time would alter how future generations saw them. In cash registers they rattled alongside quarters and dimes. In purses they nestled next to receipts and keys. They were silent companions of everyday life. But coins often carry histories that outlive their use as money. Most 1993 half-dollars entered circulation and bore the gentle wear of daily handling. Surfaces softened from contact, details blurred by time, and edges dulled by the friction of life. These worn examples tell stories of countless transactions, of hands they pass through, and of ordinary days that ripple outward into memory. Yet among the millions of these coins were rare survivors. Pieces that somehow slipped out of circulation early or were preserved with care before ever seeing heavy use. Maybe one was tucked into a coin album by someone with a collector's instinct. Maybe another slipped into a drawer and was forgotten for decades. These survivors retained original surfaces, crisp details, and a vitality that many of their siblings lost long ago. Collectors call such coins mint-state survivors, coins that show no significant wear from everyday handling. To see a 1993 D half-dollar in true mint state is like seeing a snapshot of 1993 caught in metal. Under bright light, the surfaces reflect a sheen that feels impossible after 30-plus years. Kennedy's profile remains sharp, the lettering clear, and the fields of the coin seem untouched by time itself. But condition alone is not the only way a coin becomes fascinating. In every large minting run, tiny variations occur. Minute differences in die striking, microscopic shifts in how the metal flowed under pressure, slight irregularities that escape casual notice but become treasures for trained eyes. These subtle variations are like fingerprints of the minting process, clues that draw collectors deeper into study and admiration. Imagine discovering such a coin tucked away in a jar of mixed change, or in an old coin album passed down from a relative. At first glance it looks familiar, but then, under closer light, it seems too sharp, too alive with detail. Its surfaces reflect light in a way that seems almost new. In that moment of discovery, when the ordinary becomes extraordinary, a collector's heart leaps. These coins don't just become valuable because of metal or age. They become valuable because they survived. They represent the improbable, that a small disc struck in 1993 could remain almost pristine in 2025, outlasting the everyday where it claimed most of its cohort. That rarity, that whisper of survival against the odds, is what gives certain examples their magnetic pull. Collectors also cherish the stories embedded in these coins. Stories of how they were used, where they traveled, and how they came to survive. Every scratch on the worn examples hints at a life lived. Every gleaming surface on a mint state piece hints at a life avoided, almost untouched. These contrasts give coins emotional texture, making them more than metal, making them memories cast in copper nickel. In the world of numismatics, condition and story merge to shape value. A 1993 D half dollar that's been worn smooth by decades of use has its own charm and modest value. But one that survived in near-perfect condition, or one that displays unusual minting nuances, becomes a prize, not just priced higher, but desired in a way that captures the imagination. There is also an evocative connection between this coin and what it represents. The legacy of Kennedy, the continuity of American currency, and the way everyday objects can carry extraordinary stories. A coin that once paid for a soda can later be admired in showcase lighting, studied by enthusiasts for its details, cherished for its survival, and remembered for the hands it never touched. And while the dream that a single coin could make someone a billionaire overnight is more imagination than reality, the idea of transformation is real in the collector world. Rare coins in exceptional condition have changed lives, not because they are magical, but because they represent scarcity, story, and desire converging in a tiny piece of metal. Yet even beyond price tags, these coins remind us that history lives in the small things, in the quiet objects we handle without notice, in the everyday tokens of life that suddenly, decades later, reveal deeper meaning. A 1993 D. Kennedy half dollar in mint state is not just change. It is a testament to time, survival, and the enduring human urge to connect with the past through tangible artifacts. So when we think of the 1993 D. Kennedy half dollar, we see more than a coin. We see a storyteller, a silent witness to generations of hands, pockets, wallets, and drawers. We see a bridge between eras, a physical echo of transactions that once seemed mundane but now whisper of history. For the person who discovers a remarkable example today, a coin still sharp, still bright, still alive with detail, that small piece of metal becomes a portal to stories past and a spark of wonder about what else might be hidden in jars, albums, and drawers, waiting to be found. The ordinary becomes extraordinary, and the smallest disc of metal reminds us that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones we overlooked all along. Next coin. The story of the 1989 D. Kennedy half dollar begins not in a grand vault or a museum display case, but in the quiet hum of everyday life, the jangle of change in a pocket, the hand-to-hand passage at a supermarket checkout, the loose coins dropped into a jar on a dresser. In 1989, this coin slipped into circulation without fanfare, a medium-sized piece of metal designed for everyday exchange. But beneath that ordinary surface lay a piece of history that would one day capture the imaginations of collectors and dreamers alike. On the obverse of the coin, John F. Kennedy's profile looks outward in calm determination, a frozen echo of a life that resonated far beyond its time. Kennedy's image had become iconic by 1989, his legacy stitched into the fabric of American memory. To hold this coin was to hold a fragment of that legacy, a small tactile reminder that the people we honor on money are more than symbols. They are stories woven into the national psyche. Stamped with the D mint mark, this half dollar was struck at the Denver Mint, a facility that for decades had produced coinage designed to circulate through every corner of American life. Denver's presses churned out millions of these half dollars, each intended to be used and spent, not tucked away, not admired, and certainly not expected to become collector treasures. That was their fate only by chance. Most 1989 D half dollars began their lives much the same as any other coin. Dropped into a pocket, spent at a cash register, cranked through vending machines, and jostled around with keys and receipts. With every exchange, the coin accumulated the gentle abrasions of everyday life. Edges grew soft, surfaces lost their original sheen, and details faded under the steady friction of decades of use. Yet even as most coins wore down under the pressures of circulation, some rare examples escaped that fate entirely. A few were tucked into coin folders, placed in jars of change and forgotten, or saved by someone who simply appreciated the coin's presence. These survivors, untouched by the constant that marks ordinary coins, retained an astonishing original condition that seemed almost unreal decades later. Collectors call these pristine survivors mint state coins, pieces that show little to no wear from circulation. To see a mint state 1989 D half-dollar under bright light is to see time itself frozen in metal. Every feature stands crisp, every line clear. The light dances off the surfaces with a brilliance most of these coins have lost to decades of commerce. But condition alone does not fully explain the allure of certain coins. In every large minting run, tiny variations occur. Slight differences in striking pressure, minute quirks in how the metal hits the die, almost imperceptible shifts that can make one coin slightly different from another. To the casual eye these are invisible, but to the trained collector these are the fingerprints that make each coin tell its own story. Imagine handling such a coin for the first time. The smoothness that hasn't come from wear, the crispness of the lettering, the sharp detail of Kennedy's profile. It's as though you are holding not just a coin, but a moment from history preserved in metal. There's a visceral thrill in that, the same thrill that has driven collectors for generations to dig deeper, look closer, and see value where others see only spare change. Many of these mint-state survivors were unknowingly spared the grind of circulation simply by luck. Perhaps one slipped into the bottom of an old wallet and was forgotten. Perhaps another rested in an album, shielded from daily life. Whatever the case, their survival speaks to chance and circumstance, and to the stories that every coin silently carries with it. Collecting these coins is not just about monetary value. It's about connection, to people, to history, to the tactile sense of holding something that has outlived ordinary use. A coin in pristine condition becomes a bridge between eras, allowing us to feel a direct link to the moment it was minted and the hands it never endured. The notion that a single coin could one day be worth far more than its face value is not built on fantasy, but on the real way that rarity and condition shape the collector market. When a coin combines exceptional preservation with historical resonance, collectors pay attention. And when attention meets scarcity, value can rise, sometimes astonishingly. Stories abound of people finding rare coins in the unlikeliest places. A forgotten album, a jar of mixed change, a box from the attic. In these moments of discovery, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. What was once just pocket change suddenly has presence, significance, and the power to astonish. Yet the enduring fascination with these coins goes beyond what they might fetch at auction. These coins remind us that even the smallest objects in our lives can carry deep meaning, that history lives not just in textbooks, but in the things we touch every day. A half-dollar is more than metal. It's a witness to the passage of time. For collectors, part of the joy is imagining all the places a coin has been before it arrived in their hands. How many transactions did it witness? How many errands, lunches, bus rides, gas station stops? Each worn example bears the invisible fingerprints of countless moments. But the mint-state survivors, untouched and brilliant, suggest a parallel story, one of quiet preservation amid a sea of use. In the end, the 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar is more than currency. It is a storyteller, a whisper from the past cast in metal. In its worn examples, it reflects the ordinary rhythms of everyday life. In its pristine survivors, it reflects the possibility that even the most unnoticed object can become remarkable. For the person who holds a mint-state example today, this coin may be a symbol of connection to a time gone by, a testament to the enduring allure of history, and a reminder that value is often hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for someone with curiosity, patience, and an eye for discovery. In the smallest details, the greatest wonders are sometimes found. Next coin. The story of the 1992 D. Kennedy half-dollar begins not in a place of majesty, but in the everyday flow of life, in the clatter of change on a counter, in the pocket of someone heading out on errands, in the small transactions that make up the fabric of daily living. In its day, this coin was simply another piece of money, meant to shuttle value from hand to hand without fanfare. But as years unfolded, certain examples of this coin, whispers amid the millions struck, would grow into fascinating relics with stories worth telling. On the obverse of this coin stands the familiar and resolute profile of President John F. Kennedy, his young, thoughtful face captured in metal. By 1992, Kennedy's image had become iconic, a symbol of optimism, courage, and a promise of potential that shook the foundations of a generation. His likeness on this half-dollar serves as a reminder that even ordinary objects can carry extraordinary meaning. Every time someone once held this coin, they literally held a piece of that legacy. The D Mint mark tells us that this piece was struck at the Denver Mint, a facility that has played a central role in American coinage for over a century. In 1992, Denver was cranking out coins with impressive efficiency, feeding a nation that still used cash every day for countless small transactions. Most of the coins that came off those presses were intended for everyday use, for vending machines, mall purchases, parking meters, and the change you might toss into a coin jar without thinking twice. In its early life, the 1992 D half-dollar was often treated as just another coin, passed from person to person, pocket to register, hand to hand. Many of these coins never stayed in one place long. They saw wear fast, the edges softened, the surfaces picked up tiny nicks and scratches, and the once bright finish gradually dulled. To the casual spender, it was simply money. To history, it was a witness to everyday life. But within that vast sea of circulation, rare survivors existed, coins that somehow slipped out of the normal flow before they were ever worn. Perhaps one was tucked into an album by a young collector, another slipped into a drawer and forgotten, and still others saved by someone who felt intuitively that coins were more than just change. These survivors retained something remarkable: the original crispness and shine that most coins lose with use. Collectors call these exceptional examples mint state, coins that show no real evidence of having been spent or handled in daily commerce. To hold one of these mint state 1992 D half-dollars is to feel a ripple of time stand still. Under the light, the surfaces can still reflect a gentle glow, the lines of Kennedy's portrait remain sharp, and the lettering seems almost brand new. These coins feel like time capsules caught in metal. Yet, condition alone is only part of what makes certain coins beloved among collectors. In every large minting run, tiny variations and nuances occur. Slight differences in striking pressure, subtle die shifts, microscopic variations in metal flow. To most eyes, these are invisible, but to the trained collector's gaze, they are profound. These subtle traits can elevate a coin from common to extraordinary. Imagine, for a moment, pulling an old coin album from a family drawer, the pages yellowed, the coins long forgotten. You brush away decades of dust and there it is, a half-dollar that looks impossibly sharp and crisp, its surfaces unmarred by time. In that moment, the ordinary becomes remarkable, and what was once mundane is suddenly magical. This is the thrill that drives coin collectors, the sense that hidden beauty and value might lie in the unlikeliest places. The worn coins remind us of the countless moments they have passed through: groceries bought, bus fares paid, lunches shared, errands run. They whisper of everyday life. But the mint state survivors tell a different story, one of preservation, rarity, and possibility. And while the idea of becoming a billionaire overnight from finding a rare coin is certainly extraordinary, the underlying appeal is not fantasy alone. It is rooted in the real nature of how rarity, condition, and collector demand intersect. In the right circumstances, coins that defy wear, preserve original detail, or display unusual features can attract intense interest and commanding prices among serious collectors. Beyond market value, these coins connect us to history in ways that transcend numbers. They are echoes of moments long past, physical fragments of a time when cash was still king and coins were felt in the palm and heard as they dropped into a hand. A pristine half-dollar from 1992 may carry no precious metal, yet it holds something equally potent: a memory of a world in motion. Collectors delight not just in what a coin is worth, but in what it means, the stories it holds, the hands it passed through, the era it represents. Rare coins become anchors for imagination, ways to touch layers of time that would otherwise seem abstract or distant. A coin in mint state becomes a bridge between everyday life and treasured memory. In numismatics, the story of a coin is often as valuable as the coin itself. Each scratch, each gleam of original surface, each mint mark carries narrative weight. When you look at a mint state 1992 D half-dollar, you are seeing not just a coin, but a journey. From press to pocket, from circulation to preservation, from ordinary to extraordinary in the eyes of those who care deeply. And that is why coins like this endure in the collective imagination of collectors and history lovers. They remind us that even the smallest, most overlooked objects can carry profound stories. They show that what seems ordinary in one era can become remarkable in another. They teach us to look closely at the everyday and find wonder where others see none. So when you think of the 1992 D Kennedy half-dollar, see it not merely as currency, but as a journey. See it as a witness to decades of life lived in countless small moments. See it as a piece of history that connects generations. And see it as a reminder that the extraordinary often hides in plain sight, waiting for the curious hand, the careful eye, and the patient heart to uncover it. Next coin. The quiet glow of a wallet's interior, where change gathers in jumbled companionship, lies a small disc of metal that bears witness to decades of American life. This is the 1971 D Kennedy half-dollar, a coin that entered circulation not with fanfare or flash, but with the steady pulse of everyday use. It was made to be spent, passed from hand to hand, used to pay for transactions both ordinary and memorable. And yet, in the unfolding years that followed its minting, some examples of this humble coin took on a mysterious and astonishing allure that only few could have predicted. On the obverse of the coin, the striking profile of President John F. Kennedy meets the eye, forever frozen in the moment of inspiration. Kennedy's image is more than portraiture. It is a symbol of energy, optimism, and a forward-leaning vision that gripped the nation in the early 1960s. By 1971, when this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, that legacy had already begun to shift from immediate memory into the realm of legend. To hold a Kennedy $50 is to feel a whisper of that legacy in the palm of your hand. The Denver Mint, marked by the small but significant D on the coin, was a workhorse of American coinage, churning out currency designed to flow through the veins of everyday commerce. In 1971, Denver's presses were producing millions of $50 to satisfy the needs of an economy that still relied heavily on physical money. Shoppers, workers, students, and travelers would all handle these coins in the ordinary exchanges that make up the texture of life. In its first years, the 1971 D. Kennedy $50 was just another tool of exchange. It bought groceries and gas, it paid for parking meters and movie tickets, it sat jingling in coin trays and wallets. Most people never paused to consider its design or its meaning. It served a purpose and moved on. That anonymity in circulation was part of its original fate. But coins have a peculiar way of collecting stories simply by existing in the flow of life. The surfaces of ordinary 1971 D have shown the gentle abrasion of decades of handling. Microscopic marks from cash register trays, soft edges from rubbing in pockets, subtle fading of detail that comes from being used as currency rather than kept as a collectible. These worn examples still carry history, but they whisper it rather than shout it. Yet some coins manage to avoid that wear entirely. For every coin spent, there was always another saved, tucked into a drawer and forgotten, slipped into a collection by someone who sensed its future value, or merely overlooked and ignored in a coin jar for years. These survivors, untouched by the grind of everyday use, stood a chance of preserving something remarkable. Their original surfaces, sharp details, and the clean imprint of a moment long past. Collectors call such examples mint state coins. A mint state 1971 D. Kennedy $50 shows no discernible wear from circulation. Under bright light, it might still catch a soft gleam on its surfaces. Every ridge of Kennedy's profile is defined, the lettering crisp and distinct, and the fields, the flat spaces of the coin, remain unmarred by the thousand tiny interactions that dull most coins over time. When a coin survives in this condition, it becomes more than a piece of metal. It becomes a time capsule, a snapshot of 1971 preserved in copper-nickel that speaks of craftsmanship, longevity, and the unpredictable ways history unfolds. To hold such a coin is to feel a connection to the past that is tactile, immediate, and deeply personal. But the allure of rare coins doesn't rest on condition alone. Within any large minting run, tiny variations occur. Slight differences in how the metal flowed into the die, subtle shifts in striking pressure, or minute surface characteristics that set one specimen apart from another. What might look like an insignificant quirk to an untrained eye can become a defining attribute prized by specialists. Imagine discovering such a coin in an album passed down from a relative, or in an old box of mixed change that you stumble upon while cleaning a drawer. At first it looks ordinary, but when you hold it up to the light you sense something different. A sharpness of detail that shouldn't be there after decades, a sheen that defies expectation. In that moment of recognition, what was once mere pocket change becomes something rare, something extraordinary. This thrill, the moment when the ordinary transforms into the remarkable, is what drives collectors around the world. It is not just about monetary value, but the personal connection to discovery, to history, to the invisible threads that bind us to those who came before. A mint state 1971 D. Kennedy $50 doesn't just sit in a holder. It invites curiosity, sparks conversation, and evokes the passage of time. Collectors often speak of the eye appeal of a coin, a quality difficult to define but unmistakable when present. It is the way a surface gleams, the interplay of light and shadow on a portrait that remains crisp, the tangible sense of preservation that sets a rare piece apart from its many worn siblings. A coin with strong eye appeal can stir the heart of a collector and capture the imagination. And while the idea that a single coin could make someone a billionaire overnight is an exaggeration rooted in fantasy rather than fact, the underlying belief that rare pieces can command surprising prices is grounded in reality. Coins that combine rarity, strong condition, and collector demand can attract astonishing sums at auction and deep admiration in elite numismatic circles. Yet even beyond market value, these coins teach a deeper lesson, that history lives not only in grand monuments and famous documents, but in the tiny metal discs we once used without a thought. Every worn surface, every faint blemish, every gleaming mint-state survivor tells a story, of wallets and purses, of cash registers and lunch counters, of hands that touched them and moments that passed unnoticed. The 1971 D. Kennedy half-dollar reminds us that time is both relentless and selective. Most coins wear down and fade, absorbing the marks of use like memories etched in metal. But a rare few slip through history untouched, preserved by accident, intention, or circumstance, and in their survival they carry a quiet wonder that beckons the curious to look closer. So when you think of this coin, do not see only metal stamped with a date. See a witness to decades of life. See a fragment of history that quietly circulated among millions of mundane moments. See a piece of the past waiting to be recognized for its endurance, its story, and the hidden potential it carries in stillness. A mint-state survivor from 1971 is not merely a collectible object. It is a reminder that even the smallest things, a humble half-dollar, can bridge time, connect generations, and awaken in us a sense of awe at how ordinary moments can become extraordinary when viewed through the lens of history, chance, and discovery.